The unity of the Ten Commandments. The Ten Commandments are so closely interwoven that the breaking of one leads to the breaking of another. But there is a particularly strong bond of union between the first 5 commandments, which are written on one table, and the last 5, which are on the other table. The first commandment, I am the Lord your God, corresponds to the 6th, you shall not kill. For the murderer slays the image of God. The second, you shall have no strange gods before me, corresponds to the 7th, you shall not commit adultery. For conjugal faithlessness is as grave a sin as idolatry, which is faithlessness to God. The third commandment, you shall not take the name of the Lord in vain, corresponds to the 8th, you shall not steal, for theft leads to false oath. The fourth commandment, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy, corresponds to the 9th, you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor, for he who bears false witness against his neighbor commits as grave a sin as if he had borne false witness against God, saying that he had not created the world in 6 days and rested on the 7th, the Sabbath. The 5th commandment, honor your father and mother, corresponds to the 10th, covet not your neighbor's wife, for one who indulges this lust produce children who will not honor their true father, but will consider a stranger their father. The 10 Commandments which God first revealed on Mount Sinai correspond in character to the 10 words of which he made use at the creation of the world. The first commandment, I am the Lord your God, corresponds to the first word at the creation, let there be light, for God is the eternal light. The second commandment, you shall have no strange gods before me, corresponds to the second word, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the upper waters from the lower waters. For God said, choose between me and the idols, between me, the fountain of living waters, and the idols, the stagnant waters. The third commandment, you shall not take the name of your Lord in vain, corresponds to the word, let the waters be gathered together. For, as little as water can be gathered in a cracked vessel, so a man cannot keep possessions which he has obtained through false oaths. Keep the Sabbath holy corresponds to the word, let the earth bring forth grass. For he who truly observes the Sabbath will receive good things from God without having to labor for them, just as the earth produces grass that need not be sown. For at the creation of man it was God's intention that man be free from sin, immortal, and capable of supporting himself by the products of the soil without toil. The 5th commandment, honor your father and mother, corresponds to the word, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven. For God said to man, I gave you 2 lights, your father and your mother. Treat them with care. The 6th commandment, you shall not kill, corresponds to the word, let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature. For God said, be not like the fish, among whom the great swallow the small. The 7th commandment, you shall not commit adultery, corresponds to the word, let the earth bring forth the living creature after its kind. For God said, I chose for you a spouse, abide with her. The 8th commandment, you shall not steal, corresponds to the word, behold, I have given you every herb-bearing seed. For none, said God, should touch his neighbor's goods, but only that which grows free as the grass, which is the common property of all. The 9th commandment, you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor, corresponds to the word, let us make man in our image. You, like your neighbor, are made in my image. Hence, bear not false witness against your neighbor. The 10th commandment, you shall not covet the wife of your neighbor, corresponds to the 10th word of creation. It is not good for man to be alone. For God said, I created for you a spouse. Let not one among you covet his neighbor's wife. Moses, chosen as intermediator. After Israel heard the 10 Commandments, they supposed that God would on this occasion reveal to them all the rest of the Torah. But the awful vision on Mount Sinai, where they heard the visible and saw the audible, The privilege was granted them that even the slave women among them saw more than the greatest prophet of later times. This vision so exhausted them that they would surely have perished had they heard another word from God. They therefore went to Moses and implored him to be their intermediator between them and God. God found their wish correct. So he not only employed Moses as his intermediator, but determined in all future times to send prophets to Israel as messengers of his word. Turning to Moses, God said, "All that they have spoken is good. If it were possible, I would even now dismiss the angel of death. But death against humanity has already been decreed by me, hence it must remain. Go say to them, 'Return to your tents, but you stay with me.'" In these words, God indicated to Israel that they might again enter upon conjugal relations, from which they had abstained throughout 3 days, while Moses should forever have to deny himself all earthly indulgences. Moses, in his great wisdom, now knew how, in a few words, to calm the great excitement of the myriads of men, saying to them, "God gave you the Torah and wrought marvels for you, and through the observance of the laws which he has imposed on you, to distinguish you from all other nations. Consider, however, that up to this time you have been ignorant, and your ignorance served as your excuse, but you now know exactly what to do and what not to do. Until now you did not know that the righteous are to be rewarded, and the godless to be punished in the future world, but now you know it. But as long as you have a feeling of shame, you will not lightly commit sins." Then the people withdrew 12 miles from Mount Sinai, while Moses stepped quite close before the Lord. In the immediate proximity of God are the souls of the pious. A little farther, mercy and justice, and close to these was the position Moses was allowed to occupy. The vision of Moses, owing to his nearness to God, was clear and distinct, unlike that of the other prophets who saw but dimly. He is furthermore distinguished from all the other prophets in that he was conscious of his prophetic revelations, while they were unconscious in the moments of prophecy. A third distinction of Moses, which he indeed shared with Aaron and Samuel, was that God revealed to himself in a pillar of cloud. In spite of these great marks of favor to Moses, the people still perceived the difference between the first 2 commandments, which they heard directly from God, and those that they learned through Moses' intercession. For when they heard the words, "I am the Eternal, your Lord," the understanding of the Torah became deep-rooted in their hearts, so that they never forgot what they had learned. But they forgot some things that Moses taught, for as a man is a being of flesh and blood, and hence momentary, so are his teachings momentary. They then came to Moses, saying, "Oh, if he would only reveal himself once more! Oh, that once more he would kiss us with the kisses of his mouth! Oh, that understanding of the Torah might remain firm in our hearts as before." Moses answered, "It is no longer possible now, but it will come to pass in the future world, when he will put his law in your inward parts and write it in your hearts." Israel had another reason for regretting the choice of an intermediator between themselves and God. When they heard the second commandment, "You shall have no strange gods before me," the evil impulse was torn from their hearts. But as soon as they requested Moses to intercede for them, the evil impulse set in once more in its old place. In vain, however, did they plead with Moses to restore the former direct communication between them and God, so that the evil impulse might be taken from them. For he said, "It is no longer possible now, but in the future world he will take the stony heart out of your flesh." Although Israel had now heard only the first 2 commandments directly from God, still the divine apparition had an enormous influence upon this generation. Never in the course of their lives was any physical impurity heard of among them, nor did any vermin succeed in infesting their bodies, and when they died, their corpses remained free from worms and insects. Moses and the angels strive for the Torah. The day on which God revealed himself on Mount Sinai was twice as long as ordinary days, for on that day the sun did not set, a miracle that was 4 times more repeated for Moses' sake. When this long day had drawn to its close, Moses ascended the holy mountain, where he spent a week to rid himself of all mortal impurity, so that he might go to God. At the end of his preparations, God called him to come. Then a cloud appeared and lay down before him, but he knew not whether to ride upon it or merely to hold on fast to it. Then, suddenly the mouth of the cloud flew open, and he entered into it, and walked about in the firmament as a man walks about on earth. Then he met Kemuel, the porter, the angel who is in charge of 12,000 angels of destruction, who are posted at the portals of the firmament. He spoke harshly to Moses, saying, "Why are you here, son of Amram, on this spot, belonging to the angels of fire?" Moses answered, "Not of my own impulse am I here, but with the permission of the Holy One, to receive the Torah and bring it down to Israel." As Kemuel did not want to let him pass, Moses struck him and destroyed him out of the world, whereon he went on his way until the angel Hardaniel came along. This angel is 60 myriads of parasangs taller than his fellows, and at every word that passes out of his mouth issue 12,000 fiery lightning flashes. When he beheld Moses, he roared at him, "What are you doing here, son of Amram, here on the spot of the holy and high?" When Moses heard his voice, he grew exceedingly frightened. His eyes shed tears, and soon he would have fallen from the cloud. But instantly the pity of God for Moses was awakened, and he said to Hardaniel, "You angels have been quarrelsome since the day I created you. In the beginning, when I wanted to create Adam, you raised complaint before me and said, 'What is man that you are mindful of him?' And my wrath was kindled against you, and I burned scores of you with my little finger. Now again you commence strife with the faithful one of my house, whom I have bidden to come here to receive the Torah and carry it down to my chosen children Israel, although you know that if Israel did not receive the Torah, you would no longer be permitted to dwell in heaven." When Hardaniel heard this, he said quickly, "O Lord of the world, it is manifest and clear to you that I was not aware he came here with your permission, but since I now know it, I will be his messenger and go before him, as a disciple before his master." Hardaniel then, in a humble attitude, ran before Moses as a disciple before his master, until he reached the fire of Sandalphon, when he spoke to Moses, saying, "Go, turn about, for I may not stay on this spot, or the fire of Sandalphon will scorch me." This angel towers above his fellows by so great a height that it would take 500 years to cross over it. He stands behind the divine throne and binds garlands before his Lord. Sandalphon does not know of the abiding spot of the Lord either, so that he might set the crown on his head, but he charms the crown so that it rises of its own accord until it reposes on the head of the Lord. As soon as Sandalphon bids the crown to rise, the hosts on high tremble and shake. The holy animals burst into songs of triumph. The holy seraphim roar like lions and say, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory." When the crown has reached the throne of God, the wheels of the throne are instantly set in motion. The foundation of its footstool tremble, and all the heavens are seized with trembling and horror. As soon as the crown now passes the throne of God to settle in its place, all the heavenly hosts open their mouths, saying, "Praise be the glory of the Eternal from his place." And when the crown has reached its destination, all the holy animals, the seraphim, the wheels of the throne, and the hosts on high, the cherubim and the hashmalim, speak with one accord. The Eternal is King. The Eternal was King. The Eternal will be King in all eternity. Now when Moses beheld Sandalphon, he was frightened, and in his alarm he came near to falling out of the cloud. In tears he imploringly begged God for mercy, and was answered. In his bountiful love for Israel, he himself descended from the throne of his glory and stood before Moses until he had passed the flames of Sandalphon. After Moses had passed Sandalphon, he came across Rigion, the stream of fire. the coals of which burn the angels who dip into them every morning, are burned and then arise anew. This stream, with the coals of fire, is generated between the throne of glory, out of the perspiration of the holy Hayyot, who perspire fire out of fear of God. God, however, quickly drew Moses past Rigyon without his suffering any injury. As he passed on, he met the angel Galazer, also called Raziel, who reveals the teachings of his Maker and makes known in the world what is decreed by God. For he stands behind the curtains that are drawn before the throne of God, and sees and hears everything. Elijah, on Horeb, hears what Raziel calls down into the world and passes his knowledge on. This angel also performs other functions in heaven. He stands before the throne with outspread wings, and in this way stops the breath of the Hayyot, the heat of which would otherwise scorch all the angels, and from which their faces receive a radiance that makes men fear them. When Moses beheld him, he trembled, but God led him past unhurt. He then came to a host of angels of terror that surrounded the throne of God, and are the strongest and mightiest among the angels. These now wanted to burn Moses with their fiery breath, but God spread his radiance of splendor over Moses and said to him, "Hold on tight to the throne of my glory, and answer them." For as soon as the angels became aware of Moses in heaven, they said to God, "What is he who is born of woman doing here?" And God's answer was as follows, "He has come to receive the Torah." They furthermore said, "O Lord, content yourself with the celestial beings. Let them have the Torah. Why should you meet with the dwellers of the dust?" Moses then answered the angels, "It is written in the Torah, I am the Eternal, your God, that have led you out of Egypt and out of the house of bondage. Were you perchance enslaved in Egypt and then delivered, that you are in need of the Torah? It is further written in the Torah, you shall have no other gods. Are there perhaps idolaters among you, that you are in need of the Torah? It is written, you shall not utter the name of the Eternal, your God, in vain. Are there perhaps business negotiations among you, that you are in need of the Torah to teach you the proper form of invocation? It is written, remember to keep the Sabbath holy. Is there perhaps work among you, that you are in need of the Torah? It is written, honor your father and your mother. Have you perchance parents, that you are in need of the Torah? It is written, you shall not kill. Are there perchance murderers among you, that you are in need of the Torah? It is written, you shall not commit adultery. Are there women among you, that you are in need of the Torah? It is written, you shall not steal. Is there perchance money in heaven, that you are in need of the Torah? It is written, you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. Is there perhaps any false witness among you, that you are in need of the Torah? It is written, covet not the house of your neighbor. Are there houses, fields, or vineyards among you, that you are in need of the Torah? The angels then relinquished their opposition to delivering of the Torah into the hands of Israel, and acknowledged that God was right to reveal it to mankind, saying, Eternal, our Lord, how excellent is your name in all the earth, you who have set your glory on the heavens. Moses now stayed 40 days in heaven to learn the Torah from God, but when he started to descend and beheld the host of the angels of terror, angels of trembling, angels of quaking, and angels of horror, then through his fear he forgot all he had learned. For this reason God called the angel Euphaphiah, the prince of the Torah, who handed over to Moses the Torah, ordered in all things sure. All the other angels too became his friends, and each bestowed upon him a remedy as well as the secret of the holy names, as they are contained in the Torah, and as they are applied. Even the angel of death gave him a remedy against death. The applications of the holy names, which the angels through Euphaphiah, the prince of the Torah, and Metatron, the prince of the face, taught him, Moses passed on to the high priest Eleazar, who passed them to his son Phinehas, also known as Elijah. Moses receives the Torah. When Moses reached heaven, he found God occupied ornamenting the letters in which the Torah was written with little crown-like decorations, and he looked on without saying a word. Then God said to him, "In your home, do not people know the greeting of peace? Moses, does it become a servant to address his master? God, you might at least have wished me success in my labors." Moses then said, "Let the power of my Lord be as great as you have spoken." Then Moses inquired regarding the significance of the crowns upon the letters, and was answered, "Hereafter there shall be a man called Akiba, son of Joseph, who will base in his interpretation a gigantic mountain of Halakot upon every dot of these letters." Moses said to God, "Show me this man." God, "Go back 18 ranks." Moses went where he was bidden, and he could hear the discussions of the teacher sitting with his disciples in the 18th rank, but was not able to follow these discussions, which were over his head, which greatly grieved him. Just then he heard the disciples questioning their master in regard to a certain subject. "How do you know this?" And he answered, "This is a halakha given to Moses on Mount Sinai." Moses returned to God and said to him, "You have a man like Akiba, and yet you give the Torah to Israel through me?" But God answered, "Be silent. So has it been decreed by me." Moses then said, "O Lord of the world, you have permitted me to behold this man's learning. Let me see also the reward which will be given him." God said, "Go, return and see." Moses saw them sell the flesh of the martyred Akiba at the meat market. He said to God, "Is this the reward for such knowledge?" But God replied, "Be silent, thus have I decreed." Moses then saw how God wrote the word long-suffering in the Torah, and asked, "Does this mean that you have patience with the pious?" But God answered, "No, with sinners I am also long-suffering." "What?" exclaimed Moses. "Let the sinners perish." God said no more, but when Moses implored God's mercy, begging him to forgive the sin of the people of Israel, God answered him, "You yourself advised me to have no patience with sinners and to destroy them." "Yes," said Moses, "but you declared that you are long-suffering with sinners. Let now your patience be great according to what you have spoken." The 40 days that Moses spent in heaven were entirely devoted to the study of the Torah. He learned the written as well as the oral teaching. Even the doctrines that an able scholar would one day propound were revealed to him. He took a special delight in hearing the teachings of the Tana Rabbi Eliezer, and received the joyful message that this great scholar would be one of his descendants. The study of Moses was so planned for 40 days that by day God studied with him the written teachings, and by night the oral. In this way he was able to distinguish between night and day, for in heaven the night shines as the day. There were other signs also by which he could distinguish night from day, for if he heard the angels praise God with, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts," he knew that it was day. But if they praised him with, "Blessed be the Lord, to whom all blessing is due," he knew it was night. Then, too, if he saw the sun appear before God and cast himself down before him, he knew that it was night. If, however, the moon and stars cast themselves at his feet, he knew that it was day. He could also tell time by the occupation of the angels, for by day they prepared manna for Israel, and by night they sent it down to earth. The prayers he heard in heaven served as another token by which he might know the time. For if he heard the recitation of the Shema precede prayer, he knew it was day. But if the prayer preceded the Shema, then it was night. During his stay with him, God showed Moses all the 7 heavens, and the celestial temple, and the 4 colors that he was to employ to light up the tabernacle. Moses found it difficult to retain the color, and God said to him, "Turn to the right." And as he turned, he saw a host of angels in garments that had the color of the sea. "This," said God, "is violet." Then he told Moses to turn to the left, and there he saw angels dressed in another color. And God said, "This is royal purple." Moses then turned to the rear and saw angels robed in a color that was neither purple nor violet. And God said to him, "This color is crimson." Moses then turned about and saw angels robed in white. And God said to him, "This is the color of twisted linen." Although Moses now devoted both day and night to the study of the Torah, he still learned nothing, for hardly had he learned something from God when he forgot it again. Moses then said to God, "O Lord of the world, 40 days have I devoted to studying the Torah without having learned anything from it." God therefore bestowed the Torah on Moses, and now he could descend to Israel, for now he remembered all that he had learned. Hardly had Moses descended from heaven with the Torah when Satan appeared before the Lord and said, "Where is the place the Torah is kept?" For Satan knew nothing of the revelation on Sinai, as God had employed him elsewhere on purpose, that he might not appear before him as an accuser, saying, "Will you give the Torah to a people that 40 days later will worship the golden calf?" In answer to Satan's question regarding the whereabouts of the Torah, God said, "I gave the Torah to earth." To earth then Satan went with his question, "Where is the Torah?" Earth said, "God knows of its course. He knows its abiding place. He looks to the ends of the earth and sees under the whole heaven." Satan now passed on to the sea to seek for the Torah. But the sea also said, "It is not with me." And the abyss said, "It is not in me." Destruction and death said, "We have heard of the fame of it with our ears." Satan now returned to God and said, "O Lord of the world, everywhere have I sought the Torah, but I have not found it." God replied, "Go, seek the son of Amram." Satan now went to Moses and asked him, "Where is the Torah that God has given you?" Moses answered, "Who am I that the Holy One, blessed be He, should have given me the Torah?" God then spoke to Moses, "O Moses, you uttered a falsehood." But Moses answered, "O Lord of the world, you have in your possession a hidden treasure that delights you daily. Dare I presume to declare it as my possession?" Then God said, "As a reward for your humility, the Torah shall be named for you, and shall henceforth be known as the Torah of Moses, the books of Moses." Moses then departed from the heavens with the 2 tables on which the 10 Commandments were engraved. And just as the words of it are by nature divine, so too are the tables. These were created by God's own hand at the dusk of the first Sabbath, at the close of creation, and were made of a sapphire-like stone. On each of the 2 tables are the 10 Commandments, 4 times repeated, and in such a way were they engraved that the letters were legible on both sides. For, like the tables, the writing and the pencils for inscription, too, were of heavenly origin. Between the separate commandments were noted down all the precepts of the Torah, in all their particulars, although the tables were not more than 6 hands in length and as much in width. It is another of the attributes of the tables that although they were fashioned out of the hardest stone, they can still be rolled up like a scroll. And when God handed the tables to Moses, God held them by the top third, and Moses took hold of the bottom third, but 1/3 remained open, and it was in this way that the divine radiance was shed upon Moses' face. Next, the golden calf. End part 52 of 95, TheLegendsOfTheJews.com.